Hey guys, Dantics here. The more I see of Fable, the more pumped I get. There's so many features shown that have me thinking this will be an absolute day one, if only there weren't a few small issues that I just can't ignore.
Like what?
In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know about Fable, including things you didn't notice in the latest gameplay trailer, and information from recent interviews and articles that may surprise you. I'll cover things I love and things I really think need work. There'll also be little tidbits you'll find interesting, like how house prices are affected by the market and random dead bodies, and how you can manipulate the toy box in amusing ways. So let's get right into it. Fable is an open world RPG continuing on from the critically acclaimed original Fable 1, 2, and 3. Lionhead Studios have passed the reins to Playground Games, who you may know from games like Forza. So this is a bit of a departure from their usual genre, but all of their games have released to extreme success, so I'm confident they at least know what they're doing. They're also a British studio, so hopefully that British charm and wit comes through. As Fable is known for both. Fable is set to release the 23rd of February 2027, so it's not too far away. Many of you are checking your calendars now and realize that yeah shit, we're already halfway through the year. So at a top line, Fable aims to give you the ultimate choice within a fantasy open world. Yes, Fable is now a true open world. For the most part, the devs understand what fantasy means, but we'll get to how they don't. You build a custom character and are set loose in the world. You're able to do quests to complete your ultimate goal of saving Albion, and you're able to muck around and play with the game's many systems, all of which will shape your character's reputation, their gear, potency in combat, and what they can ultimately do in the world. The systems are what are most exciting, so recently a trailer was released showing them off. It has you enter a new town, commit some actions that start building your reputation around town, like buying property and employing a beggar, then leveraging that reputation to become desirable to a gold digging, taking her out on a date and asking her to be your girlfriend. Then the trailer is topped off with some combat against the guards of the town. This all takes place in Oakshire, one of the 6 diverse regions in this game. Oakshire is based on the British countryside, so you have rolling hills, farmlands, and lush foliage. Each other region is said to be very different. Silverbrook is the largest settlement in Oakshire, and the NPCs have an unhealthy obsession with vegetables, so the town is themed around that. Lots of commoners everywhere, massive beanstalks, and talking animals, which you'll see soon. You may remember the beanstalk from the other trailer, in which we have the option to save or slay a giant, but I'll get to that a bit later. One of the features Fable hangs its hat on is that in the world of Albion, there are over 1,000 fully voiced NPCs, all of which are apparently handcrafted. NPCs' jobs, homes, routines, relationships, and memory are all different between them. They'll go to work, go to bed, have hobbies and families, and sometimes spend far too long at the pub. None of the NPCs are scripted, and they're all powered by real-time systems, so this is impressive. I got to see it in action, and they do go about their business in very natural ways. I didn't get to experience all 1,000 NPCs, but they're apparently all voiced as well with no AI, so that is a monumental task. According to Xbox, we originally thought we could create a procedural tool to generate all of the NPCs needed for the world, because creating them by hand would have been an enormous amount of work. But it quickly became obvious that in order to make our NPCs feel believable, procedural generation wouldn't work. The NPCs the tool generated felt random and incoherent. As so often happens, we realized we wanted to control every detail of every NPC in our game, so we made the slightly crazy decision to design each and every NPC by hand. In a visual sense, all of our characters are built from modular pieces. We have hundreds of these, and our artists can then pick from this vast wardrobe of asset pieces, with variations based on where the NPCs live in the world and the type of person they are, be it a noble, a commoner, or a ruffian. Then we have their voices. All of our NPCs are fully voiced. We cast around 100 actors to voice our living population alone. So for those paying attention, that means one voice actor for 10 NPCs, which is really good when you compare it to Skyrim. But the truly manual work comes in building their personalities. Every NPC has a trait, a description of their personality shown to the player, a place to live, a job, a schedule, and more. All of this work is done by the game design team. We wanted to have that level of control to make sure that we could create believable characters. For example, you may have a snooty noble person that lives in a manor house and looks a certain way. When you look at an NPC, all of these different pieces combined should tell a story that you should be able to pick up quite quickly to let you get a feel for them. So they've handcrafted over 1,000 NPCs, which is weird to me because it clearly was an intentional choice to make them all look like the cast of people you'd find in the average American KFC. Let's take a look at Reddit, who still obsess about Lady Grey decades later. Even though the devs have seemingly blatantly disregarded the fantasy in fantasy here, the systems seem to be what you'd expect in other Fables with improvements. Walking past people, they'll comment on how they feel about you, like it was in previous titles.
Imbecile.
In previous titles, they'd note your alignment and your status. If you're a chicken chaser, they'll comment on that. If you have a lot of strength and look buff, they'll ogle you good and proper. But in this Fable, they've done away with that system. Instead, you'll gain a reputation in key areas based on how you play. Right now, in this town, we have no reputation. Max, the stable hand here, is indifferent to us, as you would be. He doesn't know us from a crate of vegetables. Above his name is a mask with an indifferent looking face which represents this. He has the title, the Stable Hand. Their titles change based on where they work and what kind of person they are. So you can be sure he is indeed a stable hand. Below that is what kind of NPC he is. His trait, a shifty commoner. Shifty means what he likes and how he acts is different. He might like you more if you are, say, a thief because of his shifty ways. But if you buy a business and are looking to hire, you might not want a shifty bugger stuffing it all up for you. He's also a commoner like most people within this town. Like we said before, there'll be nobles and other statuses that you can find in Fable. Below that is a table that explains how he feels about you. Below that are options you have with the person you're currently talking to. Right now we have romance options, follow me options, gifting options, and giving gold options. You could also press Y for more details, and we could bookmark the person so we can easily search for him in menus. The player asks Max to follow him, which is met with dialogue that has a disappointing amount of millennial aftertaste.
Follow me. I don't deal with randos.
So asking this builds up our weird reputation, as denoted by the plus weird text that appears top left. All reputation gained will appear in the middle or shift to the left if there's a menu in the way, so keep an eye out. Gaining enough of a particular type will cement it to you around town. So if we do enough weird stuff, we'll be known as a weird rando in Silverbrook. Yeah, at least I don't have a flower pin on like you, buddy. Which you can see here. You can also see the subscribe button isn't pressed, so if you could go ahead and press it. Maybe I'll put on a flower pin as well. I don't know. Tempt fate.
All the physical labor is now done by a single Australian man.
It's a good time to admire the world. It does look beautiful. You can't deny that. These devs have worked on Forza, and this is using the same engine. Walking past a few people, we see the first bit of side content. A butcher and a kid arguing in the middle of the street, which sounds like a setup to a joke. Walk up to the joke and the scene will automatically play. No need to click on anything, it seems. So this isn't a cinematic. There's over 2 hours of performance captured cinematics in the game though, like the ones we've seen in other trailers, which actually doesn't sound all that impressive when you consider games like Mass Effect, but this is not that kind of game. This is an open world. Instead, we get hundreds of story conversations like this, which have an impact on the world in small and large ways. We have big choices, little choices, moral choices, and even some choices that change the landscape. The devs call this Your Choices Change the World. Like we saw with Dave, a giant version of the dude from the IT crowd. If you kill him, his corpse is just outside of town forever. And this affects your house prices, which are also affected by factors which I'll go through soon. Let's see what happens with this particular side quest.
Oh, hero, can you do me a favor and get this bloody kid away from me?
No,
I won't let you kill Colin. Hero, you have to stop him.
What you may have noticed is the amazing lip syncing. No doubt they've developed a system that automatically moves lips to the dialogue they've inserted, making voicing the thousands of NPCs easier, but it clearly needs work.
Look, kid, I'm a butcher, and Colin's just a pig. Do I need to spell it out?
But I'm not like all the other pigs, am I, John?
Oh shit, Colin's a pig? Sorry, I couldn't tell the difference. So Colin here is magically able to talk, and yes, they can all hear him. That's not a Family Guy Stewie can't be heard by everyone situation.
Oh, look, I am not having this conversation with you again, Colin.
Did I just understand that pig?
Oh, yeah, the novelty wears off after a bit, trust me.
Colin's special. Please. We can eat something else at this little travel feast.
Well done.
People are expecting a hog roast, kid, and I've been preparing this pig for ages.
But I've only just learned to communicate. Who knows what else I could achieve? I've got potential, hero. Don't let me end up on a spit. Please.
Don't let me end up on a spit. You're sure this isn't a normal human girl talking to her father? Here you have the choice between letting the pig live or signing it up for OnlyFans. You can also ask for more information, and those choices will continue the conversation, but not advance the conversation, similar to your other narrative-driven titles. Take a second to look behind the character. It's beautiful. You can see the town bustling with life. A child even runs behind you, and once again, this isn't all scripted. So making the choice will impact how people feel about you in town. In this case, the player chooses live. Rightly, the butcher says it's his pig. You can't just turn up and stop him doing what he wants with his property. So to actually stop it, you have two options. Either buy the pig from him or fight him for it. I'm not sure how the fighting him for it conversation will go. I doubt he'd agree to that, but buying it costs a huge amount of gold. 2,000 to be exact. You don't get to keep the pig and it will leave with the boy, but you may see it around town and be able to interact with it later. I'm not sure, it may come up again somewhere else, considering that 2,000 is a lot of money and you could use that to buy a nice top hat, which we'll see soon. For comparison's sake, buying a whole pub is just under 100,000 gold. So what do you get from buying the pig? Let's take a look. First, you get some shrewd reputation, and when it snaps to the kid responding, you get some merciful and virtuous reputation. However, you've gained enough shrewd and virtuous rep to be known around town as those things, shown by the notification. Still, we haven't done enough merciful things to gain it as our reputation yet. Now, you might think that saving the pig is the ultimate good guy choice, but it's secretly evil, as it also makes it so the feast this year goes vegan.
Those rumours about Dave's veg better be true. Feast going vegan this year.
The kid also gives you a basket of smiley face cupcakes. Now, we can't see what they do, but I'm fairly sure the brat doesn't understand the social construct of fair trade. He then has no issue walking off with our pig. They better be damn delicious cupcakes. Rewinding back, you also ask the kid and the pig for information about your main quest from the guild, tracking a dangerous anti-hero. No, not Jack of Blades, though that seems to have been teased as well. No idea how that all would work, but we're talking about a new antagonist just revealed. One that is played by Hayley Atwell. And I mean, you can mostly tell it's not as perfect as it was with Richard, but yeah, you know. So you can find clues around town about your mission, and this is one way. I wonder if the butcher helps you instead if you recommend Colin for slaughter. I want to point out how cute Colin is when he bounces and says, like what?
There's been reports of strange things happening around here.
Like what?
Shit, they're successfully lowering my standards, but it is true. Not sure I'd have the heart to eat Colin now, though they don't really give you useful information to go on.
You should try the sheriff.
So to reiterate, your reputation is local. You can be known as up to 6 different reputations in one area. So you could be known as a killer in one town and a virtuous charmer in another. You can also sleep with every NPC in the game if you put in enough time. So yes, the NPCs are player sexual, meaning they have the potential to be attracted to you no matter who you are. In a fantasy, that is actually a good thing. So if you're gay, you might not care that a guy just invited you back to his bedroom. If not, some females will be this forward as well if you meet their criteria. So morality is objective to NPCs. What is good for one can be bad for another. Even being merciful will divide opinion. There will be those who don't like that you're a goody two-shoes with a distinct lack of pork on your breath. This is similar to real life. You can be perfect, but there'll always be someone that will hate you for that. Criminals in this game will like you for being heartless to the employee you just fired, even if you only did it because they sucked at their job. All this to say the systems in place in this game feel much more natural than a simple good and evil morality. I guess it's a good time to comment on the male character's gait. Before, he had a very distinct feminine hip sway. It's since been improved to be more masculine. My theory is it wasn't something sinister, they only just finished working on the male character and before we were locked to female. The comments on the first reveal trailer may have encouraged Playground Games to work on a character creator, and if so, keep up the constructive criticism guys, as long as it's in a polite way. I really do want this game to succeed, and it seems like they're listening to feedback. They've even added some cool little animation flares, like how the player shakes out a stiff arm before talking to Jack, which means it's time to start messing around with the systems. Here we see Jack the beggar. The mask is smiling, which shows at a glance that he does like you. He may be jobless right now, hence the beggar, but his natural disposition is hard worker. So because you have that new virtuous reputation, he likes you because he thinks you're principled. Sidebar, I wish I had this power in real life, to scan someone and know how they feel and why. You'd be a god among commoners, which is how you'll feel in Fable. So the player opts to give Jack some gold. You have the option of 1000 or 100 increments. The player gives 100. He seems happy about it and you get plus to kind reputation. The player does it again and it cements your kind reputation around town. This is just from helping poor down in his luck Jack, but don't worry, we're going to do it some more. You can see his like of you has also changed. He likes you because you're kind and he thinks you're considerate. It's a good time to mention the minimalist UI. There isn't a lot up on screen when you aren't in combat. What you can interact with appears when you get close, like this chicken or the deed in front of this house or business, with a red dot with a white stroke. I'm a fan, it really does look beautiful. You notice that Ethan, an opinionated commoner who likes you, reacts to your new kind reputation. Aren't you a do-gooder? Instead of just reacting to your alignment or your stats like in previous Fables. Reputations will be how villagers react, which to me feels more natural. I talked about this before, but will I miss the good versus evil alignment? Yes, but like another Lionhead game's namesake, that's very black and white. Keep in mind, evil reputations like Killer will still be generally disliked, but there will be a small handful of people that will like you for it. Now the player takes a stroll to the general store and meets slack-jawed Megan, the gold digger. She's an ambitious commoner and because of this, she likes the finer things in life. She likes you because she thinks you're savvy, which is what she discerns from your shrewd reputation. You can browse her goods, but the player fancies Megan for whatever reason, so he wants to pursue a relationship. Clicking on the button will open 5 more. Flirt, sleep together, move in together, have a baby, or propose. More being available depending on the situation, so he flirts with her. This gives plus to flirty and charming. Not so sure every girl will like a flirty man, so you might have to keep that in check. Seems we fast forwarded to the Tinder era, and Megan now has a completely realistic checklist you need to meet in order to gain the privilege of going on a date with Her Majesty. She's looking for someone known as an entrepreneur, someone who wears fancy clothes, and someone who owns a local residence, which in this economy is close to impossible. She certainly is ambitious, which is what is influencing her needs. So now that you flirted, the option has changed to ask on a date. Let's see what happens when you do so.
Do you want to grab a drink or something?
Would you believe you're almost what I'm looking for?
Forget that you're a handsome hero that's saving the world, Megan is worth it. So when the player clicks off Megan, it shows that the romance menu has been updated and you can press start to show Megan in the romances tab. This is so you can track what she wants without having to go back to her and talk to her. First, to be an entrepreneur, we have to buy a business. In Fable, you can buy any business that exists in the game. Why? Well, you can employ people and collect an income from the business, just like you could in previous Fables, except in this game, all businesses are open to you. You could, say, buy the general store she works in and fire her. That's what I would personally do. Let's see how ambitious she is on the streets.
Don't let me end up on a spit.
Evil laughs aside, the player opts to buy the local pub. When you click on the deed, you can see the name, how many people are employed, the income, and the purchase price. Note that income will change if you employ more staff. This one has 1 out of 2 possible. Also, better staff bring in a higher income. Since the purchase price is under 100,000, it will take around 19 income cycles to pay for itself. Buying it brings up the business part of the local map. Far right at the top is your currency, below that is the income you're receiving from businesses total and the total amount you can store, so you'll need to upgrade your storage soon. Below that is what the area currently thinks of you: kind, shrewd, and virtuous, as we developed before. In previous Fable titles, these things would be seen as either good or evil, but they're not inherently either. We can see we're at Silverbrook, which has a Silver Trowel Festival you can take part in. Now fully vegan. To the left, we can see our business. The Silver Trowel is all we have, but you'll notice our employee is overperforming, giving us plus 10% to income. We can set the wages from here from low to medium to high. You can also manage employees and set prices of the business. You'll notice that there are 4 pips for price. And yes, that means you can set it to free if you're feeling generous. Maybe if you end up owning all businesses in town, you can give everything away for free, or you can run a tight monopoly where you charge everyone ridiculous prices for everything, giving them no choice. That'll learn them good. Clicking on the Employee tab, you can see that Susan the bartender is a caring commoner and she fancies you. Every employee will perform differently. Her caring attitude may make her great with customers and in turn is getting that plus 10% income. This gives me an idea for a perfect business tycoon run of this game, though that'll probably take a long time. We also see here that there's a vacancy for another employee, and wouldn't you know it, we already met the perfect one. If we had another employee here and they too were performing well, you'd see the breakdown of the amounts on this screen, but you'd see the total on the one before. Regardless, the player walks back to Jack the beggar, who we know is hardworking. As we walk off, buying that business gives us enough reputation to be known as an entrepreneur and rich. Rich you gain from spending a lot of money around town in any way. The keen-eyed will notice that yes, you can still kick the chickens, and that will give you the appropriate reputation of chicken chaser. So clicking on Jack, we have the business button flashing, showing you that it is now an option. Clicking on it will present another button, hire. More will appear here like fire when it is available. Offering him a job lets him be assigned to the business. On the screen, we only have one business, but we could select any we have in the area. You'll notice that we are now known as an entrepreneur and rich, along with the other reputations from before. Slot him next to Susan and it'll give you more entrepreneur reputation. Jack also now likes you because you hired him and is thankful for his job. You'll notice that the mask now has a briefcase icon, meaning that he is employed by you. He's also Jack the bartender instead of the beggar. So villagers react to the reputation you build, but they also remember the things you do to them or around them. Jack here will now, with the systems in the game, completely change his routines. He'll go and work at your pub. This will increase the pub's income, which we'll see when the menu comes up again. It's mentioned you can change your look in a variety of ways. Tailors, hairdressers, and tattoo artists are all mentioned, and there might be more options than that. You can also change your look by finding rarer outfits in the world. The rarest will be at the most dangerous parts of Albion, encouraging you to explore. You can change your look at any time at a wardrobe at your current residence. It's now that we see the income chest is full from our pub, so we would need to collect its earnings, which we'll do later. First though, to buy the affections of Megan the mouth breather, we need to dress in a full kit of fancy labeled clothes. So the player takes a trip to the spinning wheel, a tailor. Inside is Brian the crooked commoner. I can guess why he doesn't like us. The crooked wouldn't like the kind, nor would they like the rich. Rhiannon the tailor also doesn't like us.
So much choice on offer.
We're closing soon.
She dislikes us for a few reasons: that we're shrewd, rich, and an entrepreneur, thinking we're out of touch. This may be because she's a humble commoner, though that's not my idea of humble, that's resentful. It's common these days for a particular kind of person to get those two confused. So just like in real life, your wealth isn't going to be celebrated by all. I'm not sure about you, but I would personally buy the place and fire her, putting her humble ass on the streets. Because if you try to buy from her, she jacks up the prices a massive 80%. So the Uffbridge set, which we will be buying, will be far less affordable. It was 1,500 for this top hat, and now it's more expensive than a pig on a spit. 2,700. So at the wardrobe at home, you can change your skin tone, body, hair, clothes, and much more. This is a similar screen, but here you can only see how you look with the clothes you're about to purchase. There'll be hundreds of stores in the game with their own inventory of things to buy. Buying the hat automatically puts it on. What's most important about this hat is in italics. It gives you the fancy look, which is what Megan the Muppet is after. The next tab is eyewear, and all we have here is reading glasses, which give us the smart look. Next is tops, and the top is cheaper than the hat, so we buy that as well, which gives us more rich reputation because yes, we are on a spending spree. Next are legs, and the Jubilee leggings are expensive and give a fancy look, but let's stick to the Uffbridge set. We buy the Uffbridge breeches. The next tab is shoes, but for some reason, these turnip farmer boots, which give a rustic look, a polite way of saying working man poor, are the most expensive piece of clothing yet. 4,320. The fancy Uffbridge shoes are half that price. Maybe those turnip shoes are super functional. Anyway, the player completes their look, gaining the rich reputation. So those 4 pieces together completes a set, and we get a notification that we completed the ensemble. Not sure what this does mechanically, but I hope there aren't some crazy bonuses which makes us encouraged not to mix and match. I want to pick my own outfit. So having bought that gear, the player wants to check their reputation with Megan. Megan? Doesn't matter. So we finally get a look at the menu I mentioned before when we first flirted with her. Opening up the local map, we see Silverbrook, and we see that we have 5,000 gold to collect. We also see that by pressing X, we look at the property tab, and by pressing Y is people. Doing so brings up the tabs. The romance tab has Megan since we flirted with her and tried to date her. This could be a huge section since you can have relationships with everyone in Albion if you like, which will definitely be a challenge since one particular type of reputation might turn another off you. But I mean, I'm gonna try and complete it. Clicking on Megan, we see different tabs. On the gold tab, we see we've ticked off fancy clothes and entrepreneur, but we still need our own residence. We need more money than we have in order to buy the residence the player wants. So let's finally go and collect the income the pub has made. On the way, we walk past a town crier. Without interacting with them, they'll go about their business talking about your exploits. But you can pay them a small fortune to change your reputation the way you want it. I foresee talking to the town crier, bringing up a menu with your current reputations and what you want to add or remove. Since it costs so much, it's not something you can do easily. Think of it this way, the town crier is Kotaku, screaming at everyone until some start to believe it. Though since you can only have 6 maximum types of reputation around town, maybe acquiring some will start removing the others, though I can't be sure. All I know is these can interact with each other according to an article on news.xbox. So the player finally walks into their new pub. Working behind the bar is Susan, the bartender. You can see she fancies you with the mask blowing a kiss. You can also see she's an employee with the briefcase icon. She's caring, like mentioned before. Because you're kind, she thinks you're compassionate, which is the reason for her affections. It seems with her you can skip the checklist. She already fancies you and can be taken on a date. But since nice girls finish last, the player moves on. A shame, I'm definitely team Susan. Sweeping the floors like a good hardworking commoner is Jack. He still obviously likes you. But what is interesting is that you can browse and buy goods from your own store, hopefully at cost prices since you do own it. So if you like a particular store and like the items it has to offer, maybe buying it will make it more affordable. The player heads off to the income chest to collect their earnings. You'll see next to the minimap an icon to remind you that it's ready to collect. There is an income chest in every business you own or property you live in. If you go to the property you live in, the chest will have all the income from all of your businesses and properties. One easy place to go to collect everything. The chests within businesses contain only their income. We can see here the chest has 5,000 out of 5,000, and we can upgrade the chest size to 25,000 for 5,000 gold. So we could reinvest right away, and that might be a reason why you actually come to the business chest. Note that the income rate of the pub has gone up to 8,431 thanks to Jack, so he's definitely staying. Jack, you bloody ripper. So now the player wants to go house hunting and runs into Christine, the underhanded commoner, who is also on a mostly vegetable commoner diet. This is the way. So buying every house in Albion would be a fantasy, but you can still do it. It would just take a while. To get started on this goal, we approach number 6, King's Hunt. It has room for 5 people, but currently only has 1 tenant who grants an income of 1,340 for a purchase price of 34,275. So this right here is the biggest fantasy. Forget buying all the businesses in the world and firing everyone or marrying all the pigs in the land. We get to buy homes at 1990s prices. Insanity. I can't wait to live in this fantasy firsthand. But the player still doesn't have enough money. We can fix that at a rapid rate, as doing a quick job with 0 job experience or degrees will earn us enough money for a decent sized house in only a few hours. Another fantasy that was a reality for boomers. Fable might just be the ultimate boomer simulator. So the player heads to the blacksmith to pick up a shift. While he's on the way, look at how beautiful things look in the distance, how the shadows slowly creep over the cliff face, and how there's a nice fantasy book shimmer and blur to things in the distance. We can buy the blacksmith or simply walk up to the anvil to start a shift, no experience required, though there are 3 different skill levels we can engage with. The higher difficulty, the more gold rewarded. At apprentice, we need 500 XP to move on to journeyman. We also get 6,000 gold per product made, so only 6 products needed to fully buy that house. Starting the shift, you see it's a simple minigame to bang out the impurities of a tool or weapon on the anvil. Now, since this is a demoing build, they sped up the time limit. You'll have more in the real game. I also suspect they made it so it was a lot easier and you get a lot more gold. Hitting the glowing hotspots will start fixing it. A normal quality job will get you that 6,000. However, if you aim right in the center of the object and hit it, you'll get a perfect hit on the hotspots, and that will give you a multiplier that will keep going up. So that time limit seems to matter, but it actually doesn't. I'll show you soon. Getting 12,000 for 2 strikes seems way too high, and it could go up to 18,000 on the next perfect. So I am convinced this isn't how much you'll actually earn in the real game, as it seems like you'd be able to buy everything after an hour of doing this. When looking back at the gameplay overview trailer, we were only earning 20 gold per perfect swing, which is quite low. It's likely the game was simplified for the demo, considering IGN and some of the other journalists were there. Completing the task gets us 100 experience, which is only 5 of these minigames to get to journeyman. Even better, it says continuing your shift will keep your multiplier, so that time limit doesn't mean anything. You could keep going and keep increasing until you get to the hundreds of thousands or even millions. Like I said, maybe we're missing something here. Maybe it gets progressively harder to hover over the hotspot, or maybe we have limited amounts of shifts per day. The player mentions you build your reputation working there, but as nothing pops up, we can't be sure what that reputation is. Walking past an NPC, they say they forgot the bread, so not all banter will be about you. Perhaps following them will show them going to a baker to purchase some. We pass the guards, and the guards will actually come after you if you misbehave, which we'll see soon. So now we have enough for number 6, King's Hunt. This brings up the residence tab. We can see we're getting income from the tenant. They are below average wealth, and we're charging them low rent. We can sell the house here for the amount we purchased, which is the first hint you'll get that its value can change, which means you will be able to make money buying and selling property based on its value, getting more tenants and have more income. And with more income, the prices go up. Or we can make the rent free if we're feeling charitable, but that will lower the house prices. In this case, the player wants to live in this house, so we've got to kick them out. The player clicks on the Manage Tenants option, which brings up the option to evict, but that will give us reputation as heartless. Instead, we can pay to have them leave. I personally would just welcome them to the real world and chuck them out in the street since they hate us anyway. But the player throws around more money and pays them to leave. Now we have the option to move in. Note that the sale price has drastically fallen from 34,275 to 20,565. So putting 5 paying tenants in this property will jack the prices up. BlackRock mogul run, here I come. So the player moves into the house and it's now their residence. Like mentioned, you can buy any house in Albion, and although this is a huge house for us normal people, you can buy mansions as well, which are much, much larger. Notice that we have a chest for collecting all businesses' incomes. We also have met the goals for Megan, which flashes on screen. She's now ready to go on a date. We also got the landlord and shrewd reputations for our purchase, which cements the landlord reputation in. The old tenants also left some items. In this case, it's just a bag of offal. Why are the damn kids still playing on the front lawn? You'll notice that the time of day changes as you play, but thankfully it's still working hours, so we can catch Megan at the store. As we walk there, you pass by your pub with customers in the beer garden, as well as the town crier, who is currently singing about you having a big heart and being loved by all. Clicking back on Megan, she remembers your date proposal and asks if you're still interested.
Still interested?
The player still is, considering the hoops he jumped through, so he selects romance, then date.
How about a date?
A date? Oh, I'm chuffed to bits.
She's chuffed to bits. So I want to remind you all that the player bought a pub, a house, and expensive fancy clothes for a woman who's
Chuffed to bits.
Now, I've been giving her a lot of shit, but honestly, in real life, people do have their preferences, and I have no problems with people who have a preference to date people that are much more financially secure. When we select date, we also get an option to bring with us a gift. The player already had flowers in his inventory, but you can see there the newly acquired basket of cupcakes and a bag of offal. Since we know how she is, let's bring flowers instead of food. It then cuts to your date at the pub you just purchased. No idea if date locations are random or not. The date was a success. I'm guessing if you chose the wrong gift, it could have a negative impact, which would be displayed here. Because the date went well, we get the charming reputation solidified. It also means we can ask her to be something more serious, though if her dialogue doesn't turn this player off, I don't know what will.
That date was just brill.
The date was just brill. The most evil thing in this game is the millennial writing, but it doesn't seem like every character talks like this. So now you see that Megan is interested. From here, we can hit romance and start a relationship, since that option replaced the date button. So it goes flirt, then date, then be in a relationship. Megan's mask with the kissy face is replaced with 2 hearts, suggesting she's in a relationship with you. To the side, we see Let Love Grow, where she will let you know when she's ready to talk about marriage. So you can't just press that option right away. I think though, after all that hard work, most people would hit the sleep with button, but the player doesn't. He instead is off to purchase some more soy. I kid, but there are options to get married, move in together, and even have children. So you can create a life with another person in this game, and I wonder how that life will look. I hope it's a mix between both of you instead of simply having us adopt a child like they did in Skyrim. You can also break up with Megan, and I'm sure you'll get reputation for that and she'll hate you for it. Though you can also make choices that will make your partner want to break up with you or divorce you depending on what status you are. You aren't safe forever, and I imagine that probably will happen if you do something they really disagree with, like murder a bunch of people. According to news.xbox, our NPCs are complicated individuals, so it might be the combination of your reputations that result in them liking you or disliking you. For example, someone who thinks I'm silly for being a chicken chaser might change their tune when I become a rich entrepreneur. You can become part of their lives in other ways too. You could buy their house and become their landlord, or buy a shop and become their employer. You could do both of those and control their wages and their rent, but this cuts both ways. Someone might refuse to work for me because they don't like my actions or reputation, and if nobody wants to work for me, then the shop never opens and I don't get any income. Or if I don't pay them enough to afford their rent, they'll have to move out of their home and I won't have them as tenants anymore. And beyond all of this, we also have a system that's effectively NPC memory. For example, if you give someone a job, that might change how they feel about you. If I give a beggar a large sum of money, they'll remember that I've made them wealthier and effectively changed their lives as a result. And if I happen to kill their spouse, well, they're probably going to hold a grudge against me for that too. And because all of these things are variables that the player can change, an NPC can change as a result. And that's ongoing. You could theoretically tinker with your own living population forever. You theoretically could play matchmaker, getting them in a house together, seeing if they get married, have children, divorcing them, making them cheat on each other. I mean, the possibilities may be endless. But the player has generally been pretty nice all around. It wouldn't be Fable if you couldn't be evil. Let's see what happens if you fire poor, innocent, and lovely Susan, the bartender, who's making us a lot of money and still fancies us. Going over to the business tab, we can transfer her or fire her. Firing her gives us the heartless reputation and makes her hate you. Here's the thing though, some people will like you if you're heartless. I'm sure Lady Grey from the originals would even fancy you for it. So if we start firing arrows around town, people will start seeing us as reckless. Getting out the bow will bring up some more UI options. First, total arrows left. They recharge over time. We also have spells you can activate by holding the right trigger and pressing the appropriate face buttons. So firing arrows in town, even if you don't hit anyone, it's seen as reckless. It's also a crime, reckless endangerment, which the guards can arrest you for. We see Tony saying, "Hey, have a care, idiot," when you do it. Good news though, it only takes around a second for arrows to regenerate, meaning that you won't be able to hyper spam, but you also won't be stuck with melee or spells. This is going to be a legitimate combat option. What happens when you take a shot at one of the NPCs? You get a charge for assault, and you get some violent reputation. You haven't killed him yet, so you don't get killer reputation, but if I rewind, let's take a look at the arrow. It hits the leg and sweeps him off his feet in a dynamic way, like there's some kind of advanced physics engine here. That is frankly amazing, and keep this in mind when you see the next part of combat. So now we're marked as a criminal with all those charges against us. Guards will now attack us until we escape the town. The fine is 3,000, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. It's more than a pig, but less than the pub, but it's gonna get much worse. So we get reputation as violent and criminal as the guards run over to attack. But before I talk about combat, let's talk about killing because it's permanent. According to news.xbox, you can murder everyone in a settlement and it will stay empty for some time. But they do have a system in place that will gradually repopulate settlements over time, which means you won't soft lock yourself out of features in that town forever. This is actually something we discussed a lot. How destructive do we want to let the player be? One school of thought is, if the player's done it, they should live with their consequences. But if your consequences mean that a settlement is essentially locked to you as a result, that's cool and interesting to start with, but at some point that probably becomes annoying. So we found a balance between consequences feeling permanent while also not letting the player get into a state where they can't recover their game without restarting. This also ties into another system they have called settlement traits. When you ride into a settlement or you look at it on a map, it has the name of the location, so Silverbrook for example, and it will show the current reputations you have active in that settlement. There will also be a sentence to describe that settlement. Your interactions in that settlement, in this case, killing a bunch of NPCs, will result in that settlement being described as an unpopulated farming town. So not only do NPCs have traits you can look at, so do places on the map. This also ties into the wider game in other ways. One way is through your quests. Your choices will impact settlements quite dramatically. One example is with the Spare or Kill Dave the Giant quest we talked about before. Not only will it change the world itself, but affect the people living in Silverbrook. Leaving a massive corpse on the horizon actually works as a temporary tourist hotspot, affecting the lives of those living there. It'll also have an impact on house prices. Maybe because of the tourists, yes, there will be tourists in this game, that just makes the system sound really advanced. Or maybe because of the giant corpse sprawled across the landscape, which you have to imagine will smell pretty bad after a while. It will also change the settlement trait. So that sentence can change to something along the lines of famous for its giant corpse. But the living population can also affect your game in return. For example, if you marry multiple NPCs in a settlement, you might get blackmailed by someone who knows your secret. Depending on the choices that you make in this encounter, this can have a dramatic effect on your relationships with one or both partners. The point of difference from most games is that the choices you make through even these little encounters will earn you reputation points, which then feed back into the wider system. So even seemingly innocuous side interactions that you have with NPCs can then impact other systems and cause a ripple effect across the wider game. Speaking of the wider game, without further ado, it's not Fable without combat. I do think in this footage, the combat is set to easy because I'm not loving what I'm seeing compared to the combat we saw in trailers prior. It starts off okay with a perfect parry that instantly finishes off a guard, but the rest are eyeing you up and waiting their turn to attack. This is most definitely not difficult in its current state. Killing the guard gives us a charge for murder, upping our bounty and also giving us the killer reputation. That will happen a lot more coming up. In typical Fable fashion, how you attack the enemy you just killed gives experience orbs of that type. You can use those orbs to invest in that combat style, melee, magic, and range, though there are general orbs that drop that can be used for all three. The player then charges the spell that is represented by a feather. It fires in a cone in front of the player, levitating 3 guards in the front, basically rendering them useless as long as the spell is active. In the meantime, the player can focus on the other guard. Above the guard's health bar is a shield icon that is the representation of his guard, and when it drops, you'll be hitting his health bar, which is yellow to represent an armored opponent. It still only takes 3 strikes to take him out after his guard drops. Back to the others who are still crowd controlled. This seems like an incredibly powerful spell. He shoots a target which knocks him back out of the spell, and while flying backwards, knocks another guard out of the spell. The player then cancels the spell, which drops the remaining targets to the ground and puts the spell on cooldown, which mind you is extremely quick. The player has no mana bar and instead has spell cooldowns, which means that even melee characters will want some spells. The guards are all knocked to the ground and struggle to get up for a while, so the player walks over and executes one of them instantly with his sword. The player turns around to see one of the guards is just kind of waiting around while another shoots a bow at range, which does around 1/10 of the player's health. So you can take a lot of damage and in turn the enemies die very quickly. This is most definitely easy mode, which is making me panic a bit less. Enemies generally get more aggressive the higher the difficulty. The player then uses another spell, which is a shadow-like step ability that has 3 charges and seems to recharge quick as well. It blinks behind a target and executes them. He then uses the polymorph spell to turn one of the guards into a chicken, and while in this form they can die to almost anything, which it does. We see in footage prior that this spell can wear off, though the lingering effects of feeling like a chicken remain. We also saw in that previous trailer that these spells can be charged, and this one can be charged to hit more enemies.
Strength, skill, and will. Seamlessly blending melee and ranged weapons with magical abilities gives us style-weaving combat.
So the player follows up the polymorph with a fireball, which hits the chicken next to the guard, killing it, and the guard it hits flies into another guard, which staggers him. So yes, the physics seem to be pretty damn good. The player uses the feather spell again, which looks like he's stomping the chicken's body, but he isn't. It simply crowd controls another enemy. Now, I'm not sure what this is, but he starts charging what looks to be a heavy attack. It may be modified somehow by either the weapon he has equipped or something in the skill tree, which I hope they show off soon. It doesn't straight up block damage, but it severely reduces it. Then, when he unleashes the attack, it strikes with an electric effect on the guard, stunning him and almost killing him. Then the follow-up swipe knocks his friend away, while the player takes the opportunity to execute the stunned guard. The guards will keep on coming until the player leaves Silverbrook, so he uses his polymorph and fireball one more time. Yes, it's off cooldown already, and shadow steps to the furthest guard and takes that opportunity to flee. Before we see what happens when we flee, a reminder, in the gameplay overview trailer, the combat seemed much better. We had a variety of weapons we can use, including this really weighty hammer. We had interesting spells, and we had bosses that took some skill. So I'm not convinced that we can write the combat off just yet. We'll have to wait and see for more. You'll notice as we collect the orbs, the counter to the right goes up. So the player has a bounty on his head now. He can immediately pay it from the menu, or he can wait an amount of time out of town to be able to pay a reduced amount. The player opts for waiting and whistles for his horse, which comes from off screen. Getting on the horse, the guard screams, "And stay out," which means he's probably not chasing you past this point. Although we can remove the criminal status, the reputation of being a criminal and killer will stick with the player until he makes plays to remove that reputation. One way is to pay that hefty sum to the town crier, another might be to be very virtuous around town. The Silverbrook fine is 48,000, so more than a house. If you don't pay this, the guards will attack you on sight. The player arrives at Windmill Hill, where he still has that reputation, but not the fine. If you open the map and look at Silverbrook, you can see the player has 2 charges of reckless endangerment, 1 of assault, and 9 of murder. You can pay the fine by holding X or wait another 9 minutes or so for the fine to go down in price. Until paid, you can see the locations in Silverbrook are black and crossed out to you. You'll also notice that you lost the kind reputation in Silverbrook, so I'm sure if you go around doing kind deeds, it may cancel out the criminal or killer reputation. And that's everything. We've been here for a long while, I know, but there was a lot to discuss. If you made it this far, I am impressed. Let me know what you think below. I'm keen to gauge your interest. The video is also ripe for button smashing, so if you could. As for me, I'll be back soon with more. Until next time, ciao friends.